Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Nick Harper from Washington DC, and these are the headlines of the hour. Russia announces a ceasefire around the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol to allow a civilian evacuation from the industrial area. But Ukraine says Moscow has not agreed to its request for a humanitarian corridor. US Secretary of State and Defense Secretary visit Kyiv to meet the Ukrainian president, as the United States promises to reopen its embassy in Kyiv by next week. A deadly blast in an illegal Nigerian oil refinery in the southern state of Imo has killed over 100 people. Calling the blast a catastrophe, the Nigerian president has vowed to intensify action on illegal refineries.
Today, Prime Minister Modi and I have agreed to establish an EU-India Trade and Technology Council to tackle key trade, economic and technological challenges.
European Commission Chief and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to launch the EU-India Trade and Technology Council. The EU says its cooperation with India is more than just infrastructural. And French President Emmanuel Macron beats rival and far-right leader Marine Le Pen, winning a second term in office with over 58% of the votes.
Merci, chers amis.
There have been conflicting reports on the ceasefire announcement in Ukraine's Mariupol. The Russian Defense Ministry has announced a ceasefire around the Azovstal steel plant to allow a civilian evacuation from the industrial area that has been sheltering the remaining Ukrainian resistance in the city. The ministry has also assured that the Russian troops will unilaterally stop any hostilities, withdraw units to a safe distance, and ensure the withdrawal of civilians. However, Ukraine has denied that a ceasefire agreement has been agreed with Moscow. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk has said that there are no agreements on humanitarian corridors from Azovstal today, stating that Russia had not agreed to its request for a humanitarian corridor for wounded soldiers and civilians trapped in the steel plant in the besieged port city of Mariupol. Well, last week, Russia said that it had gained full control of the strategic eastern Ukrainian city, except for the huge industrial area. And President Putin had ordered a blockade of the steelworks, where hundreds of civilians are reportedly sheltering with Ukrainian troops. Well, for more on this, our correspondent William Denslow is joining us live from Riga. William, some confusion over this ceasefire. What more do we know?
Well, Nick, of course, this comes just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin essentially said that the blockade around this area in Mariupol will be so strict that not even a fly could enter. The message coming now from Moscow is that they are saying that they are open to a ceasefire to allow civilians to leave this particular area. The message from the Russian Defense Ministry is that the only thing that is stopping them is what they say are those representatives from Ukraine using civilians as, quote, human shields. Russia says there's no prohibiting factors as far as they're concerned to prevent civilians from leaving that area. And Nick, as you so rightly mentioned, a very different message we're hearing from Kyiv. What we've heard is that the Deputy Prime Minister is saying that as far as they're concerned, they are ready to see a humanitarian corridor come into effect. They have everything they say that they need to help these civilians leave this besieged area of Ukraine. But of course, the message from Ukrainian officials is that unless they have guarantees from both parties, there's no such thing as a humanitarian corridor.
Thank you, Will. That was William Denslow joining us live from Riga. Well, next, this ceasefire announcement by Russia comes just hours after the first official US visit to Ukraine since the invasion. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin travelled to Kyiv to hold a meeting with the Ukrainian president and with other officials there. They are the highest-level US officials to have visited the country since February the 24th. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours, overrunning an allotted time of 90 minutes. The United States believes Ukraine can win the war against Russia if it has the right equipment. Apart from financial and military assistance, the United States promised on Monday to reopen its embassy in Kyiv by next week.
In terms of their ability to win, the first step in winning is believing that you can win. And so they believe that we can win. We believe that they can win if they have the right equipment, the right support. And we're going to do everything we can, continue to do everything we can to ensure that that gets.
Hear you over the sound.
Part of our commitment going forward involves a number of things that I was able to share with President Zelensky yesterday, including the return of American diplomats to Ukraine starting next week, including President Biden's intent to nominate a new ambassador to Ukraine, Ambassador Bridget Brink, currently an ambassador, someone I've served with for a long time, deeply experienced in the region, will be a very strong representative for the United States in Ukraine.
The US has been a leading donor of finance and weaponry to Ukraine and is also a key sponsor of sanctions targeting Russia. The United States and NATO allies have shown growing readiness to supply heavier equipment and more advanced weapon systems. Britain has promised to send military vehicles and is considering supplying British tanks to Poland to free up Warsaw's Russian-designed T-72s for Ukraine. We have our correspondent Susan Tarani joining us live from New York City on this. Susan, how significant is this high-level US visit to Ukraine?
Well, Nick, it is very significant because for the first time, we obviously saw these high-level officials taking this trip to Ukraine. It was very noteworthy for the Ukrainian leadership on the one hand. But I think if you read between the lines during this press conference by Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken, for the very first time, we heard about America's long-term goals. And that was when Lloyd Austin said that we want to see Russia weaken. And we haven't really heard that. And again, that also indicated a posture from the U.S. foreign policy standpoint that we hadn't seen before again. And that was really an offensive posture and not so much a defensive posture. Again, a pushback of what we've seen from the Biden administration. So Russia weakened is something that we hadn't heard on the one hand. And then on the short-term goals, we did hear Antony Blinken talk about the fact that, quote unquote, Russia has already failed, an optimistic tone, and also the fact that Ukraine has to win. You know, that was something that President Biden, his administration, was being criticized for, saying that we really weren't hearing that tone that Ukraine has to win. We really hadn't heard that tone that Ukrainians have to win this war. It was more about Ukrainians putting up a good fight. And I think that was something that we heard for the first time. So really significant, albeit it did come after a series of high-level meetings from other leaders around the world, but it is the United States. It is the prime supplier of weapons right now to Ukraine, and this press conference did come at a significant time indeed.
And Susan, the United States is promising, as you mentioned, more assistance to Ukraine. What more can we expect, considering it has already supplied a huge amount of military hardware to the country?
Right. I mean, supplies are continuously going in, 8 to 10 convoys a day. We also heard that outside of Ukraine, U.S. military personnel will ramp up their training of Ukrainian personnel to learn to use these kind of weaponries. And I think that's one of the issues that is of high concern right now is whether or not the United States is somewhat engaged in a proxy war or is on its path to being engaged in a proxy war with Russia, because it's really supplying it's really the main supplier of weapons right now to Ukraine, and Russia has made those warnings that it at any time may attack those convoys going into Ukraine. And we do know, based on Article 5 of NATO, an attack on one would be an attack on all. So it's a very delicate situation right now. The United States has said that it will supply more weapons, as much as needed, for Ukraine to be able to maintain its sovereignty. It said that it will ramp up sanctions against Russia as much as possible. And I think one of those reasons is there was an alarm coming in recent days by Russian military officials, saying that because they want to launch that major offensive in the Donbass region, they were afraid that, ongoing attacks over there, if they were to get that region, then it would probably go into regions close to Moldova, and Russia may have other ambitions in Europe. So I think that's why, these weapons will continue going in.
Thank you very much, Susan. That was Susan Tarani joining us live from New York City. Well, next today, after enduring intense battles, brutal airstrikes and unimaginable loss, Ukrainians have marked an Orthodox Easter on Sunday morning, breaking the centuries-old tradition of midnight services.
Ukrainians flock to churches to mark what they call the Great Day. Their centuries-old tradition of midnight Easter services got abandoned over fears of Russian shelling and curfew.
Yes, it is actually surprising that it has been quiet today. Quiet enough. There were a couple of times that these noises were heard relatively close to our Svetlaya street, where it is usually loud, but it was somewhere far away, maybe in the Heroes of Labour area. And now, from the very morning and night in general, you hear silence, suspicious, even I would say honestly.
This is the Georgia Peremotsia Church in Severnaya Saltovka suburb, one of the most shelled areas in Kharkiv. A small group of people marked the religious holiday quietly with the rector of the church. This church has an underground section, shelter for dozens of locals too frightened to stay in their own homes or have lost their houses to heavy shelling.
At the beginning it flew there nearby. The explosion occurred there, blew the windows. Now some 2 weeks ago, a shell landed about 1.5 meters away from the church. There was more destruction. The windows all broke. Well, not all of them, but most of them on that side.
Worshippers also gathered at St. Vladimir Church, meters away from a damaged tram stop. Shattered glass and debris still seen on the ground. In another part of the city, a large group gathered outside the Archangel Michael Church. The faithful sang as a priest blessed him with baskets of decorated eggs and Pascha. and splashed them with holy water. The service inside the church saw the archpriest pray for Ukrainian soldiers defending the country on the front lines. Meanwhile, an army chaplain conducted a service for Ukrainian soldiers in the Kyiv region. Amid shelling, this has intensified in recent weeks. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Meanwhile, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is on a two-day visit to India. Today she held a bilateral with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. At their meeting, the President of the European Commission and Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, agreed to launch the EUIndia Trade and Technology Council. In a tweet, von der Leyen shared the development, adding that the two sides will step up cooperation in trade, technology and security. With the launch, Ursula von der Leyen branded India as a technological powerhouse.
Choices made today are crucial, not just for this great nation, but for the whole world. Global Gateway could bring, for example, to India and Bangladesh, more hydropower produced in Nepal and Bhutan. It could build clean hydrogen infrastructure to power up your heavy industries. Just yesterday, I visited the headquarters of the International Solar Alliance. This is a great partnership launched by Prime Minister Modi and now bringing together 86 countries. So it's innovation at the service of people, because the International Service Alliance will benefit most the least developed countries and the small island developing states. And given the geopolitical and climate challenges we face, the business case today for solar is stronger than ever. So we should massively scale it up also through Global Gateway for the benefit of our common prosperity and the planet we all share.
An official statement from the European Commission said this strategic coordination mechanism will allow both partners to tackle challenges at the nexus of trade, trusted technology and security. The decision to set up a Trade and Technology Council will be the first for India with any of its partners, while it's a second trade council for the European Union, following the first one that it set up with the United States. The Council is similar to the EU-US model, which allows discussion on digital privacy, regulation of technology companies, and social media platform supervision. India and the 27-member EU bloc have maintained steady trade ties over the years. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded von der Leyen's leadership, stating that under her, India-EU relations are achieving new heights and new areas of cooperation are being created. This is the top EU official's first visit to India as the President of the European Commission. On her final day of the visit, she also met External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Earlier today, the European Commission President paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi as she visited the Raj Ghat Memorial dedicated to Mahatma Gandhi in Delhi. Von der Leyen has also been invited as the chief guest for this year's edition of Raisina Dialogue, which will take place later on today.
A daily publication on Gandhi and the environment to show our appreciation for your visit. So, this is the book, Mahatma Gandhi.
Well, speaking of trade ties, WION has had an exclusive conversation with the former Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Abbott. He's also a key architect of the free trade between Canberra and New Delhi. He spoke about the growing partnership between both of the countries and also clarified why China does not qualify as Australia's trustworthy partner.
With me is the former Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Abbott. So welcome to WION. You are being credited for the India-Australia Free Trade Agreement. Your role, how do you see this free trade agreement helping in trade between the two countries?
Look, it was a great team effort on both sides. Minister Goyal did a fabulous job for India. Minister Tian did a very good job for Australia. And at the end, it was the Prime Ministers, Narendra Modi and Scott Morrison, that really made it happen. I saw my role as really about 6 months ago when things were stuck, like putting a bit of oil in the machinery to make the machinery work. Obviously, back in 2014, when I first met Prime Minister Modi and raised with him the idea of a free trade deal, he was very enthusiastic, and I guess I made the most of my friendship with Prime Minister Modi to make sure that this stayed a priority with India. Because let's face it, the world is beating a path to India's door, and Australia could easily have been neglected amongst India's many suitors, but thank God we weren't.
The transportation network is being revolutionised by electric vehicles. But now we have solar-powered vehicles entering the market as well. We leave you with this detailed report on the newest competition to the EVs. I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching.
Look at these solar panels. They have not been designed to power a house. In fact, this photovoltaic array will power a car. Scientists in Australia will use these printed solar panels to power a Tesla car during a 15,000-kilometer journey that will begin in September. On their 84-day Tesla journey, the team plans to visit about 70 schools. It hopes that this will give students a taste of what the future may hold. Paul Dastoor, who is the inventor of the printed solar panels, says using the panels to power a car would get Australians to think more about electric vehicles and could help ease their range anxiety. Along with scientists, some companies are also claiming to revolutionize the future of solar-powered transport. This is a solar-powered car that charges as you drive. Designed by German startup Sono Motors, the Scion is equipped with solar panels to top up the battery as it's driven. It's a fully electric vehicle that has solar cells integrated into the bodywork. Other than the solar power, the Scion can be charged from conventional power outlets as well. Priced at $30,000, the car has a range of up to 305 kilometers. It comes with seat heaters, air conditioning, and a large infotainment system. Deliveries for the Scion are expected to begin in the first half of 2023. Sono Motors' patented solar technology has been developed so that it can be integrated and licensed into a wide range of vehicles. The company is planning to bring its proprietary solar technology to public transport as well. According to the company, the novel solar bus trailer will hit the roads in the Munich metropolitan area in the near future. Will provide a total output of more than 2,000 watts. It will be used to power the vehicle's battery and electrical loads, such as heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, as well as the trailer's steering system. It will help reduce local CO2 emissions by over 6.5 metric tons per year per vehicle. This solar-powered vehicle offers a little home on wheels. You heard that right, it has a bed and even cooking facilities. The solar panels of the roof generate enough energy to drive and live off the grid. It's been designed by a group of Dutch students who have named their creation Stella Vita. The student team says that on a sunny day it is capable of traveling 730 kilometers at a top speed of 120 kilometers per hour. And thanks to its 60 kilowatt-hour battery, it can drive 600 kilometers at night. Once it's parked and its roof unfolded, it boasts 188 square feet of solar panels. About as much as an average home's roof can accommodate. The creators are sure that their mobile home will play a small but significant role in tackling climate change.